appreciate you coming in. Still early days for the podcast, so bear with me if things don't just pan out the way we're planning. But
that's the game we're playing.
No, it's an exciting opportunity to have you on. You're a very mature head on young shoulders, a hard worker, and having got to know you, a pretty kind, considerate, and well-mannered, young man. And I think you got quite a lot to offer in this conversation. So, Coach Phod, welcome. And I wonder if you could just get us rolling a little bit with sort of who you are, where you sort of come from, and what you're sort of doing now. And then we'll go back and build up to what got you there.
Fine, yeah. Firstly, thanks for having me on, Jack.
Pleasure.
It's first podcast for me. It's very exciting, and a pleasure to be on your podcast, which is wicked.
Thank you.
So who am I? Yeah, so I'm Phodi, Coach Phod, as most people know me in the gym and around on the gram, things like that. Online coach, probably about 85-90% of the time. The rest of the time coaching in person, couple classes at Sisu, the gym that you train at and I coach at, and then also do a little bit of stuff with the family business as well here and there, as and when I can help out. That's kind of the day-to-day at the minute. Very simple things day-to-day. So yeah, that's the intro to me, really.
Okay, so anyone who's ever seen you, or anyone who goes and checks you out after this, you can see you're a man in great shape. Your Greek Cypriot sort of heritage, the Greek god body that you've got. So when did you first start training?
So training for me has always been a thing. Always been a thing. Like I couldn't tell you a time when I haven't trained apart from illnesses, but I probably started training when I would call it training, 10 years old. And that for me was before I went to bed. My dad would start me doing 10 press-ups a night, and we added one on every night. And before you knew it, I was a 10-year-old kid banging 100 press-ups.
What was the reason for that? Was you playing sport, or?
I was a kid, and I always looked up to being a strong man. As a young boy, I always looked at men, older men, bigger guys, strong guys, just men in general who were like your typical rugby player or your typical boxer or whoever it was who walked in a room and was a big guy. I want to be like that. And I remember
saw physical presence and size as a quality you admired.
Yeah, as an old school characteristic. There's a story actually that if my dad ever says to anyone about me as a kid, that there was an old rugby player called Lawrence Delalio.
Lawrence Delalio, yeah. And
he was retired. I think he was just retiring at the time, or I can't remember what it was. And I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember this. We were watching TV, and I must have been 12 or 13 years old watching TV. And he had a beaten up face. His nose was crooked. He had cauliflower ears. He was just a broken man to look at, but just a big man to look at. He was a tall guy. I think he was bald. Just a man's man. And I remember being a kid, and I was definitely not the person I am now to look at as a kid if you were to see a photo of me as a kid. And I remember watching TV with my dad, I said, "Dad, when I grow up, I want to be just like him." And this guy had a beaten up face, and he was just a man's man. He was just a big guy. He was strong. He wasn't out there with his personality. He was just a big, strong guy. And I said to Dad, and Dad says it to me now. He's like, "You looked at that guy when you was a kid, and you said to me," I remember it, he says it to me that he remembers it clear as day, and I remember it saying to him that I remember it clear as day. And he was like, you stuck to your word, and you said that you wanted to be like that, and now you are.
So you didn't go and play rugby off the back of that?
I played rugby off the back of it through school. And when I was at school, I got into boxing.
Okay.
So boxing was like my first sport for me, that as a kid that I got into. I trained maybe 4 or 5 times a week, got quite good. I was a young guy fighting with guys who were 3, 4, 5 years older than me, because I was just always a heavier guy anyway, naturally, because I was in the gym from a young age. So I had a fair amount of muscle mass from a young age, and then got into calisthenics first. That was the first thing in the gym, and then when I could and had the opportunity, I got into boxing and did that for maybe 4 or 5 years. Really enjoyed it.
So that was you building on what was already quite a disciplined training regime, or was that
Yeah,
the start
building
of a
on
disciplined
yeah.
training?
It was like a mixture.
Okay.
It was a mixture for me. I think I was in the gym already, and I was just obsessed with training,
So
whatever it was.
How do you go from the 100 push-ups a night to the disciplined training of boxing? What's the time frame? What was the change in your
The 100
approach?
push-ups a night, it was push-ups and sit-ups. And that was every night. And that was continuous. And if I couldn't go to sleep until I did it, there was a point where my dad would make me do it to say, you want to be big and strong? You need to do this. And now you learn now that he wasn't actually teaching me he wasn't teaching me anything else apart from discipline. Because the art of a push-up and a sit-up isn't actually, as you know now, as a fitness coach, isn't going to do a lot in the grand scheme of things.
Sticking to your goal,
it was about, you want to do
time.
something, cool, you need to do this every day and create the discipline of it. And then eventually it was cool, I can't go to sleep on my own until I know I've done these push-ups and sit-ups. And I remember being on holiday, what do you call it when you're at school? You know, like school weeks away.
Yeah, like an adventure.
Like an adventure. And I remember being in the hostel with the boys in school, and them filming me do my 100 press-ups. And I was like 14, 15 years old, and they'd never seen anyone do 100 press-ups or a set of 75 press-ups in one go.
So that was unusual to them.
And that was unusual to them. And I remember being like, well, this is normal for me.
How did they respond to that? Was that a thing that they were inspired by, impressed by? Was it, I know what young boys are like. Was it?
Yeah, I was always the guy at school. That was always me. That Phod trains, Fod's strong, Phod goes gym, Fod's that was me. That was
your identity.
That was my identity at school. I remember arm wrestling guys who were like 3, 4 years older than me. When you're at school, you lose to a kid who's 3 years younger than you at school. Like that doesn't happen. Do you know what I mean? In school, as you're a man, as soon as you pass the age of 20, everyone's the same age. It's irrelevant. But when you're at school, when you're 14 and you're arm wrestling a kid who's 16 and you beat him, that gets around the school. And that was cool. I was always that guy, and I enjoyed being that guy. That I was never the best at the sports I was doing at school. At rugby, my job was get the ball, run straight into the guy in front of you. That was your job. Or not let someone run past you. That was my job. I was never that good in those individual sports, but I was always good at turning up to training, being the fittest in training, or being the strongest in training, necessarily, not always the fittest, being the strongest in training, and then just being able to run or do whatever it was. And that was the same in boxing, it was the same in rugby at school, and boxing through school all the way. And then I think I stopped boxing maybe 16, 17. I think I started about 13, stopped about 16, 17. About 4 years of boxing, busted nose that, if you can see on the cameras, this nose doesn't want to get any worse than it already is. So there was a few reasons there, and I got too big into bodybuilding training.
So 16
bodybuilding
comes in.
The takeover was there of Rich Piana, Eat Big to Get Big.
Okay.
That was like 16 onwards, I would say.
I was going to say, why did you get into bodybuilding?
Yeah, bodybuilding was like, I wouldn't call it bodybuilding as such. I still call it training, and I still do, because even when I used to train, I'd be 16, go to the gym after school or on the weekends, and to take it back a little bit, the reason I remember very clearly that the reason I started going to the gym was my mum always trained in the gym, and on a morning, on a Sunday, on a weekend morning, or on a holiday through school, my mum would be up at 6, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, and the option was stay in bed and her come back at 10, 11 o'clock, and then you see her and have breakfast then, because you're a kid and you just wait for your mum to get back, or go to the gym with her. So every day I'd get up and just go to the gym, because my mum did it. And that was just the done thing, that my mum and dad would go together. They would train every day without fail in a commercial gym, do your typical pump class, or my mum was very big into yoga and she would be doing her yoga. In the early days, it was like pump and things like that. But as time progressed, it was a lot of yoga and a lot of running. And I didn't necessarily train with them, but I would always just go.
So you're going there, you're lifting weights.
Yeah, I would go there, lift weights.
Did you know what you was doing? Was you researching it? Or was you
Researching.
a little bit lost in the gym at that point?
I've never understood how, and as a PT, as a coach, I can understand it from other people's point of view in terms of a confidence thing. Because I was always a bigger guy, I always trained up until that point. I was always in shape. Okay. So I always looked like I was in a gym.
Yeah, so you had confidence.
So I had a confidence that was always there because from the press ups from day one, from being a kid, I developed some form of early muscle mass and then just carried it on. Through the boxing training, I always had some form of abs. I was always in shape. So when I was in the gym, it was just like, oh, you're suited in the gym because you're in shape. And I've never understood how someone can go in a gym and not know what to do because there's always someone doing something.
So you
would copy.
When you're young and you're getting into this training, you've been doing the press ups, you've been doing the other bits, you've been doing the boxing training. Now you're in the gym. What was your motivation? Because I don't suppose the desire for Lawrence Dallaglio was still there at that stage. I imagine your intrinsic or your extrinsic motivations had moved and changed.
I don't know if it had changed, personally. It's a good question because I've not really thought about it at the time because it was just a done thing. It was just as you say, you build a habit. You don't question brushing your teeth in the morning. And for whatever reason, I just developed the habit of going to the gym.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that habit of going to the gym.
Fair to say you're a man of routine.
And I was a man of routine. And I enjoyed the fact that no one else did it.
Okay.
That I was at school, and this is still being 15, 16, 17, looking like a 24-year-old guy. Looking like the age I am now, I would say that people would see me in clothes and think like, wow, like, how have you got in that shape at a young age or whatever? And I enjoyed that.
So was you carving out a model for yourself there where you was, in a world where people are trying to stand out and be known for something, you was Phod, the strong guy, the muscle guy, the
gym guy.
The gym guy at school.
That was me. I remember there was a time that I remember being in shape and then going on summer holidays, that 6-week period, and saying to my friends at school, I'm coming back. And I called it at the time, and to any friends who would listen to this podcast and be like, I remember that conversation, that I remember coming back and saying, I'm going to have boiled eggs on my stomach after this summer holiday. And that was what I called abs. I wanted them to look like boiled eggs on my stomach. And I came back in September in the new year of New Year's school, and I did it. And the boys were like, fair play, Phod. You did it. And I was like, I know.
What was that?
I wasn't surprised.
So you say you were 16?
Yeah, 16. 15, 16. And that was when I really started hitting some strides in like my aesthetic of...
So with that, are you thinking you're going to take this somewhere? Or,
at the time, yeah.
Yeah? Into
bodybuilding.
Yeah?
Yeah. In the time, yeah, I was obsessed. Callum Vermoga, he was a G at the time. There were some guys in that. And then, yeah, I got obsessed. I wouldn't leave the gym until I could balance a bottle on my chest pump. Like, it was all... If you see how I train now to how it was then, all very different. And it was just about how big can you get.
And how was that in terms of a healthy training split at the time?
Yeah, rubbish.
Yeah?
Rubbish. I was healthy in terms of I ate well. I've never not eaten well. Wasn't really any injuries as such, but nothing was moving well. Right. If you asked me at the time, I would tell you I was the healthiest guy around, and as you don't know any different. But if you were to tell me to sit deep in a squat with nothing around you, I wouldn't be able to do it.
Right.
Or you tell me to touch my toes, not a chance.
So the goal was mass and tone.
The goal was just mass, look good. What can I look like in the mirror to make this perception of myself of being the gym guy even bigger? Essentially, was it, and nothing. I trained every day, before school, after school, weekends. That was just me, and that was all I was. I used to take meal prep into school, and I remember eating. Either I would have one lunch at but then you have obviously two breaks in your day at school. You have your break and then you have your lunch break. The break I would have a chicken salad, and then the lunch break I'd have 2 packets of microwave rice and like 3 or 4 breasts of chicken.
Wow.
As a 16, 17-year-old kid at school, or 15, 16, 17 at school, that was me.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even take my books into school. I'd be just taking a bag full of food.
Bag full of meal prep.
That was it.
Yeah, I mean, Jamie Oliver's star pupil there.
Yeah, that was me.
I was different. I was from the generation that was outraged at the loss of the turkey twizzler. So that's it's a very clear difference, and you can see your discipline in it. There was a complete focus on the goal at hand. In terms of how your bodybuilding was going at the time, for a young man of 16, 17, did it get inside your head at all about training being everything, about size being important? What was going on?
To think back now, the relationship I had with certain things was, Phod's the gym guy, he doesn't do this. Phod's the gym guy, he doesn't do that. And that would be like, if I wanted a chocolate bar, for example, I wouldn't tell anyone I ate a chocolate bar, nor would I eat it in front of anyone. I would eat it and hide the wrapper in the bin.
Right.
So then no one knew that I ate it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because
it was against your image.
It was against the image. Now I don't care.
You wouldn't be ashamed of that.
Don't give a shit. Like it's irrelevant.
How would you have responded to eating that chocolate bar, like, as well? Would you have beaten yourself up for that? Would you have tried to train it off?
Yeah. I would have been like, oh shit, I've eaten this now. I need to get back in the gym. I need to do this. I need to, like that. It was what I try and coach out of people now.
Yeah. Is
the mentality that I definitely had.
So how do you think these elite bodybuilders, the people that the people that are the Mr. Universe style bodybuilders, even some of the men's physique stuff, how do you think they affect young lads now in terms of role models?
I think as anything that, I think we may have had this conversation in the past, that anything done at an extreme level is never, ever, ever going to be balanced. Anyone or anything done at an extreme level cannot be balanced and should not be balanced. If your goal is to get to the top of your game, for whatever reason, whether that's as an athlete, as a bodybuilder, as a banker, whatever it is, if your goal is to get to the top of that game, then your lifestyle is not going to be balanced. But what you show to other people is also not going to be balanced. And that's the misconception in today's world of what that looks like, I think. As a bodybuilder, as a professional bodybuilder, someone who's got a pro card and is stepping on stage and has sponsors and is getting paid to do that, not glamorously, but getting paid to do that. There's not many guys who earn good money in that sport. You have to be in the top 1% of the top 1% to earn any money, any decent money anyway. Glamorizes the fact of take this supplement or more than a supplement, or take this meal prep, count these calories, live this lifestyle. For the everyday person, as a young lad in today's world, it's not a healthy thing to do. Therefore, I don't think it's setting healthy expectations of what that is. But that being said, I strongly believe that young guys, especially young guys in today's world, it's a healthy thing to do, to get up, have discipline, train, eat, move,
It's an
etc.
interesting point because, so many people in that generation of late teens now, they could really benefit from having role models that encourage good behaviour, such as, early mornings, good diet, training, setting goals and working hard towards them. But, on the other hand, when it is something like bodybuilding, you risk severe hormone disruption.
Yeah.
These are still young men, still maturing, still developing. So that they run some risks there. And they're, younger men can be quite vulnerable as well, and how they could fall into trappings of, like you said, supplements or more.
Yeah.
And feel the need to progress quicker. Training is about progressive overload. It is about applying yourself over time at increasing levels of intensity.
Yeah.
To generate the adaptation.
Exactly that.
And show me a young person with that level of patience. They're very few and far between. So if they do have these outrageous goals, and there's nothing wrong with that, someone with a little bit of gusto behind them to chase down what they want that's a very admirable trait. I think just as a fitness industry, people need to be careful and think about who they're influencing in terms of what can happen to the health of these young guys.
The fitness industry, the characteristics, the characters that we have, the influencers that we have in today's world, even from 5 years ago, from when I was growing up, 10 years ago, to the guys that I would follow and who you saw, there would be 10 people who I could look at when I was growing up at 15 years old, that I'd be like, these guys, and I could say it to most people and they would know who I'm talking about. Now there's 10,000 of these guys, all doing something different, all saying, no, this is the right way, no, this is the right way. And it's misleading because there is no right way.
The right way is the one that
applies
to you.
Exactly that. The right way is the one that works for you. And that's all it is. And the goal is, and I say it as a coach, if I ever pick up a client and on the very first conversations I have with them is saying, what are your goals? And if the goals aren't to be a professional athlete in any regard, I create a coaching lifestyle around balance.
Yeah.
Which is it's such an important thing to have, that I would say I'm a balanced individual, where most people wouldn't say I'm a balanced individual, but I am. I think I am balanced in the ways that work for me.
If you think you're getting the best of the worlds that you want to enjoy.
Exactly that. Yeah. So that's what you have to be able to promote that and understand who you're talking to and who these people are looking up to and why they're looking up to them. Because if there's a 15-year-old kid who's going to start getting on something that he shouldn't be getting on because he's looking at this guy who's been training for 20 plus years and is in ridiculous shape. He's in ridiculous shape for 1-2 days of the year.
Yeah.
The week before that, he's depleted, exhausted. The week after that, he's depleted and exhausted. And his relationship with himself and everyone around him and the food he's eating and his lifestyle, not to disregard the whole bodybuilding industry, which is what it sounds like I'm doing, but isn't a healthy thing to do. And that's what these guys are looking at. And it's not a healthy, I think what we need to encourage as a fitness industry is to encourage a healthy lifestyle based around training.
Yep.
That can carry on for the rest of your life.
Yeah, it's about work ethic.
It's about work ethic, and that's all that training is. And actually you bringing up my early time in training, early career in training, whatever you want to call it, I never actually thought about it any more than I have now, to say that all I was doing was engraving disciplines of training. And that's all that was.
Yep.
It was just engraving the discipline of getting up, training, and not thinking anything of that.
Just doing the thing time after time.
Just doing the time after time after time. And we can take that into any walk of life, whether that's training, whether that's going to work, whether that's seeing your nan, whatever that might be. It's cool. You might not get that instant benefit from it today, but this is the life that you're paving, and that's what it needs to be.
So at 16, you said you got eyes on bodybuilding. What does your life look like then? Did you start going to work? Are you planning on pursuing bodybuilding full time?
So life at 16, obviously get up, school, train. I worked as soon as I could, I worked. I was very, very money motivated as a young guy. So as soon as I could, I used to work for my dad. My family own a restaurant. I'd help out there through the summers when I was a kid. And then as soon as I could get a legal job and work for someone else, I did, to learn that experience of working for someone else. So I used to work in a retail store after school and weekends. And if I wasn't there, I was training. So my days at 16 included get up, go to school, either work in the evening or go to the gym. Most days it was both. Weekends, go gym, work, and that was me.
And your plan was to work rather than to pursue bodybuilding as a career?
I don't think I could have pursued bodybuilding as a career based on the fact that I was learning at that time that it wasn't the healthiest thing to do. To take it further, you have to control your life.
Yep.
And I was never at a point that I wanted to say, I want to give up everything just to do this. And make this my everything, because I wanted to earn money through working, and understood that I used to see my dad get up at 6 a.m, come home at 11 o'clock at night. That was work. Training could never be work. That was like a thing that it is now to a degree, but in my head at that time, working was cool. Get up, go to a place of work, earn your money and come home.
Yeah.
So training was just always that hobby instead of looking at it as a job, because there was no option for it to be a job, because I never had that mentality at the time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. So you've got this discipline for work, whether that is going to a job or whether it's getting up and training. And it's a discipline that, people can still see in you now, with the way that you work, with the way that you train. And I guess the question I've got for you is, when did training cross over from this kind of unbalanced, like you said, pursuit of the bodybuilding, the aesthetic, into what it is today? Is there a health priority? Is there a movement priority? Was it a change of enthusiasm?
Yeah, so there was one specific time that I could recall that really was a big mindset shift, and personally for me, but then always in the background was health benefits from my mum. So there was a time at the beginning of early COVID when things were a little bit unknown of what's what. I got into working in London. I was working in London at the time, and there was a gym box near me, and I'd never seen a gym like that really before at the time. And I'd go in there and train, and there was around in the office, Murph was going round the office.
The CrossFit workout.
Okay. Murph, which for those of you who don't know is a mile run, 100 pull-ups, 200 press-ups, 300 squats, a mile run.
In a weighted
vest. And there was a challenge going around the office of who could do it the quickest. And I didn't really know anything about what this was, never heard of it before, didn't have a clue. But me being me and wanting to be an alpha male, took the challenge and won it. Did it in the office, but the mile runs were just killed it out of me. I've never ran that far in my life.
At this stage, you're still doing like more bodybuilding stuff?
This stage was all about...
So you're doing these pull-ups strict?
Yeah, pull-ups are strict. Like, it was the worst thing I've ever done. Like, I remember being in pain, like, hated it, but did it, won. I was like, oh, this is quite cool. Long story short, I remember training with a mate. He had a bodybuilding gym on the back of this farm, right? And it was old school. We had Arnie on in the background, and old school clanging and banging, steel plates, Like, it was cool. It was the things that I remember being a kid that I used to look at and be like, oh, I'm going to do this one day. I'm going to be in shape. And we had mirrors up and I was in shape and we would be just pumping iron. Like, there's no other term for it. Just pumping iron. They had music on, Arnie blaring out some motivational quotes, and it was sick. And we painted these murals on the wall, and it was just a cool place that we had this routine. This was like early COVID times, had this routine, pre-workout, get there, pre-workout together, let that sink in, and just try and kill ourselves for 2 hours, get a massive pump, like, and leave. And that would be the day. And anyway, after a session once, we went out to the field around the back of the gym, and there were these sleds and tyres and all this stuff around the back, and we started just playing around with it. Anyway, we had a sprint race, me and my mate, and he was a bit bigger than me at the time, but his girlfriend was a professional bodybuilder. I think he'd been on stage in the past, so everything we did was geared around that. And he was like, oh, let's have a running race, like, why not? And I was like, all right, like, I've fucking never had a running race before.
Let's see
like,
if you can move.
Let's just see. Anyway, we did this running race, and I won the race. And I turned around, and he was just finishing running. And I swear to God, his knees just didn't go any higher than his shin height. Like, it was the most, he looked good. If he was standing still, he was in ridiculous shape.
Like he ran from his hips or something.
But he couldn't run. Like, his arms couldn't move. His biceps were massive. He just couldn't move. I turned around to him. I said, bruv, did I look like that when I ran just then? And he was like, yeah, of course you did. I said, cool, I'm done. And that was it. And I remember coming, because that was the time where this Murph workout was going on in work. And there was all this thing of like, there's more to this training thing than just this. And it was in the back of my mind. And then we did this race, and it just clicked. It just solidified. Cool. I'm gonna do more than just look good. I've got to change something here. And then at the time there was I've always been illnesses with my mum, and what's always got her through her illnesses was her strength internally of having a strong body, more than just looking good. She performed yoga. She was a very good yoga teacher, and the internal strength that she had was what saved her life like a number of times. I didn't really think anything of it. I just thought, I'm strong, she's strong, it's how it works. But it was only then I found out I was actually very, very weak. And I've started into this different style of training and realised I looked good, but that was it. And it was like this whole shift of, wow, I need to start again here. And it was going into the gym and just starting everything again. And it was doing movements that I'd never done before and relearning. And it was a really fun time because it was so new. It was like you just found a whole new hobby in your favourite hobby already.
So is this the point you start functional fitness?
And that was the point I started functional fitness.
And was you mentioned your mum was a yoga teacher. Did you incorporate any of that? Had you ever done yoga?
Mum always encouraged me to do yoga as a kid all the way through. I would do a class here, class there. Never really understand the benefits of it. Just know that my mum could hold a strict plank for like 11 minutes, 12 minutes even, or whatever it was. And I remember thinking, oh, that's cool. Like, people can't even do it for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, oh, my mum's strong. Like, that's cool. And then, slowly as time progressed and I got older, I would understand, like, actually this is more than just arty-farty yoga. This is benefits your whole life, and it's not just about being flexible or being able to put your feet over your head. It's you understanding what your body can do, you being in control of what your body's doing, and then also it helps with the mobility side of things and the core work and everything else. And there was just loads and loads of carryover from it.
The obvious, range of motion benefits from yoga, but also the meditative, the mindset, the control of and understanding your body.
Exactly.
That comes with yoga. So, you mentioned that your mum had been sick and battling some health problems. Did that ever change the way you approached your health or your training?
Yeah, I always knew that. I think I alluded to previously that mum being strong was what saved her life and on a number of occasions. So I always knew that, cool, if ever shit hit the fan, I need to make sure that I'm a strong guy. But what I deemed as strong, that definition has changed. Has evolved.
Yeah. From pure out strength
Yeah.
to what we'd now term health.
Yeah, so what we now term health, and then even health, what does health mean to you? That's a whole nother conversation. So yeah, that seeing my mum go through certain things, and seeing how my dad dealt with them mentally was like, cool, I need to be strong like my mum physically, and I need to be strong like my dad mentally. And that was the balance that I always had of training and whatever I was doing in life pursuits was like, that was it. That was because of what I would witness every single day, and you can't hide it.
So that strength that you emulated from your mum, you're applying that daily in your training, then eventually, and this comes to the point where we started to talk a bit more. I'd known you from before, when you'd been at Sisu before, but you decided to run 5 marathons in 5 days.
Yeah, so...
Go on, elaborate.
Yeah, so this was, well, I was deep into functional fitness. I'd been training functional fitness for a good few years at this point, coaching it a good few years, and there was a time where my mum had been ill for a long time, all my life, for as long as I really can remember, since I was 10, even younger than that. I couldn't even tell you when it started. But she'd been ill for maybe 17, 18 years of different illnesses. Started with cancer, and then it kind of just evolved from the treatments of it, different types of cancer, and it just evolved.
What sort of toll did that take on you as a young man? That's a lot. Was training
was a part of me that was always there. So no matter what was going on with my mum, I remember being in the gym as a kid and getting some news that mum was in hospital or something happened, and I'd just go to the gym.
Escapism.
And I would just go to the gym, and I didn't think anything of it. And that would be, I was fine. No one knew. Like I've got a younger brother and an older sister, and we all dealt with family problems very, very differently. Mm-hmm. How I dealt with things was not talk about it and go to the gym.
Try and train it out.
Train it out, and I did. And every time I finished the gym, I'd be fine. And that was it. And I didn't think anything of it. And there was points where I took it too far. And when I was training like a bodybuilder, I gave myself viral meningitis from training too hard, and brain infection. Just killing it. Myself, couldn't drive home from the gym, had to go straight to A&E. I was in hospital for a week and a half because I just trained too hard. And there were days where, and that was just normal for me to go to just train and throw myself in the gym. So yeah, to take it back to the question about the 5 and 5, we were deep into functional fitness, and at the time my mum was really ill, and the year before she was very ill, and we didn't think she was going to make it through that year, and then she did, and all of a sudden it happened again, and she got really ill, and we wasn't sure what the outcome was going to be at all. We really wasn't sure what the outcome was going to be. The summer before, she had emergency surgery that lasted about 10 hours in hospital. And I remember just me and my dad was in the hospital together, and we said, "Oh, cool, we'll see mum in. We will see mum in the hospital, and we'll go home and just wait out at home." We've been in this situation all our lives. We kind of knew what to do, but it was only as I've got older, I've really understood actually what was going on. When you're a kid, you don't really, oh, mum's in hospital again. Oh, okay, like whatever. But as you get older, you start to realise the severity of things. And there was a time she got rushed into hospital, straight into theatre, and she was in theatre for like 10 hours, and it was a real the longest 10 hours of my life. Like the longest 10 hours, you just don't know. It was a real hard time, a hard day. And I remember being with my dad at the time, and we said, all right, cool, we'll go see mum at the hospital, we'll go home and just have a normal day, not try and think about it. And we got home and we were just sitting there in silence between us, just not saying anything. We said, should we go back to the hospital? And we said, yeah. And we just sat in the corridor of the hospital for hours, just sat there, not really talking, but just understanding that I was there for him and he was there for me.
And both wanted to be close
and both
to
just
mum.
wanted to be there. And that was it. I think my brother and sister were busy with work, things, commitments, whatever. And yeah, me and my dad have got a very good relationship, and we were just, and it was a time when I remember just thinking, shit, this is real. This is real here. And that was the summer before, and then going into the next summer, it happened all over again. And we thought, right, here we go again. And before she went in the next summer, there was a planned surgery, but it was like a 50-50 surgery, but it was planned, but it could have gone either way, but it had to happen. And I remember before the surgery, mum was in hospital, and she was in intensive care for a good few months. And then I said to her, cool, I'm gonna do something. You've proved that you can fight. Yeah, there was a lot of times where she didn't want to fight, where like pulling the plug was a lot of an easier option than fighting. And my dad would encourage her not to, and she would always come round. And it's hard when you've been fighting, and then rinse and repeat, build your life back up, get strong, and then chop it back down and start again for 17 years. Is a hard thing to do. And there was a time that I said to her, cool, I'm going to do something to show you that you're not doing this on your own. I said, it's not going to be the same. It can't make it the same. It's impossible. But I just want to show you that you're not doing this on your own. And I remember going to sleep that night, and I woke up and I said, I'm going to run some marathons. And I just said it like that, just casual. I remember saying it to my mum and dad was like, shut up, Phod. What are you talking about? I said, no, I'm gonna run a few marathons. At this point, I never ran a marathon. I never ran further than 10k, even, and that was like a marathon to me at the time, running a 10k.
Yeah, you were a big guy.
Yeah.
Doing the functional stuff, but
yeah, strong. But fitness was never my good quality in training. It was always the strict strength stuff as well. And yeah, I said, cool, I'm going to run 5 marathons in 5 days. I'm going to run them back to back. And my dad was like, what are you even talking about? Just never heard of anything like that. In our family, no one runs. I was like Superman already in our family, as opposed to like my training and what I was doing. No one really knew anything of it. And Dad was like, stop being an idiot. Like, let's just focus on this. I said, no, I'm gonna do this, and Mum can follow my training through her illness, being in hospital, and I'll call her every day, and I'll show her the runs I'm doing, and I'll show her the training I'm doing, and it'll build up to running 5 marathons in 5 days. And I'll show her that I hate running, and as much as it's not anywhere near the same thing as her being in hospital, it's something that I hate doing, that I have to just do and get the job done, and prove that no matter what pain I was going to go through those 5 days, I was going to get it done. And I just wanted to show that to her, that I could do something like that, and that she could teach me to do something like that, essentially. And through the training, I remember the first half marathon I ever ran, I did it in the morning and then went up to the hospital. She was in hospital in Victoria, and I went up and I picked up Achilles tendonitis on the first half marathon I did. Yeah, first half marathon I did was maybe a month into training. I did 3 months of training for it, which definitely wasn't enough for anyone else who's planning on running 5 marathons.
Most people set more than 3 months to run one marathon.
Yeah. So I did 3 months of training, and I said I was going to do it on X date. And yeah, I remember the first half marathon I did, and I went up to the hospital, and she was in Victoria at the time, and I limped in, and she was really ill, really, really ill, and I didn't even say anything. And she goes, oh, what have you been up to today? I said, oh, I went for a run. She goes, how far? I said, 13 miles. She's like, what? You ran 13 miles? Blah. I said, yeah. I said, I'm training for my 5 in 5. And she goes, oh, yeah. And we'd talk about it. And then from there, I'd call her every day and talk to her about my training. And it gave her a hobby.
She had something to look forward
to follow. And yeah, and then that led to 3 months later doing the challenge and it being very, very different to what I set out it to be. Long story short, and that challenge changed my whole life. My whole life, before, during, and after, it changed my whole life, and not just for what people may expect.
Okay, so on the start line on day one, what was your expectations going in?
I had none. I had absolutely no expectations apart from I'm going to run a marathon today. I'm going to finish it, and I'm going to get up tomorrow and run another one. And that was all I thought.
And how had that changed by the finish line on day one?
It didn't.
Okay.
It didn't change at all. That was the same mentality that on the day one, I ran a marathon around Stratford. I was working in a gym in Stratford at the time called March On. And I ran along the canals in Stratford. And I finished that day. And I remember finishing and thinking, fuck me, I've just ran a marathon.
Your first marathon?
I've just ran my first ever marathon. Pretty much on my own. I set out to run it with some friends from the gym, but they couldn't run at the pace I was running at because they were actual runners and it just didn't work out. My uncle was on a push bike behind me. And
you're working at different paces as well. They were there to run for one day.
Yeah, they were there to run for one day, and I was obviously with the pace to run for 5. So which was fine, it didn't bother me. And I finished that day. I thought, wow, that was cool. I've just run a marathon. I remember my dad's face when I finished that first day, my mum's face, and they were so proud that I've ran a marathon. On marathon day is a very different thing, London Marathon, to just running a marathon on the street. And I remember thinking, wow, like this is cool. And I feel good. I feel fresh. I feel good. Didn't enjoy it at all. But I felt good. And I was excited going into day 2. Use that momentum of, cool, I've just run a marathon yesterday. I'm gonna run another one today. And I've got to run another one today. And I was like, cool, I'm going to do it. And I took that momentum into day 2. And slowly, people, you, Vicky, Big Mark, people who, not to be rude, I didn't think I had a close relationship with at the time, or I didn't have any form of real relationship with apart from, hey, how are you? Hey, how are you? How's training? And that was really it, if we're going to be honest about it. And it really touched me. And I'm not a sensitive bloke by any means. I'm not an emotional guy. And there were people who ran with me. There wasn't a lot, but there was guys who ran with me who I just never would have thought would have ran with me. There were people who never even messaged me once who I was expecting messages or running with. And it really gave me a different insight into things of what this whole thing was and why I was doing this 5 and 5. And as the week progressed, I picked up some injuries. I basically broke my shins on day 3, halfway through day 3. And it was a real big uphill struggle from there. That I remember finishing on day 3 and I couldn't walk at all. I finished it, and the minute I hit 42, there was a point where I was at, I think, 39k. I was at 40k, and I was 1 kilometre away from 39k, and I was 1 kilometre away from where I needed to be. But I was at 39k, and I didn't want to run past and come back on myself. So I ran another kilometre out to run back, and I ran that kilometre out, and my uncle was on the push bike at the time again. And I ran this kilometre out, and I couldn't run. It was agony. Like, at this point, I knew I had damaged my shins.
This is the end of the third
This is the end of the third marathon. And I knew I had damaged my shins. And every single step was just agony. And I remember running this kilometre out, which meant I was 2 kilometres away to finish. And I stopped, and I put my legs up on this bench, and my uncle touched my legs, and it was like, I couldn't even just to touch, just that was pure agony. And I grabbed his hand and I threw it, and I had a running vest on with my water in and all that stuff. And I finished, and I got up, and I just didn't say anything to him, and I just started walking, hard walking. And I took my running vest off and I gave it to him, and I just started running. And and I ran, and I just ran, and I ran this 2K, and it was the quickest 2K of the week. And I said to myself, and I finished it. I finished it at my nan's house, and there was some family there, and they were all congratulations, all that. And I was like, yeah, cool. And I couldn't walk. Like, I finished it, and the minute I took the last step, I literally couldn't walk. That was like just asking your body to do enough to get you through that day. And it was the quickest 2K, and I told myself, cool, I can finish this 2K. I can run 2 more marathons. That was the mindset I had, that I can run it. If I can run this 2K now, I can run 2 more marathons.
Proving to yourself that.
Prove it to myself. And I remember finishing and thinking, wow, I'm good.
And are you talking to your mum at this point?
Talking to my mum. She was following it. She ended up running a kilometre here and a kilometre there. I think you ran some with my mum too. And that was the coolest thing. It was really the coolest thing to see that. And I finished that day, and she was like, Phod, you need to stop. You need to stop, because I'd get home and they would help me out the car.
Yeah.
And I would get myself up the stairs. It would take me 20 minutes to get up a flight of stairs, because I couldn't put weight on my legs. And there was no question in my mind that I was going to stop.
No, your mum would never stop.
Yeah, so. There was not one point in my mind that I could say that it even crossed my mind to say, you're not running tomorrow. And day 4, I started running, got the walking sticks out, and that was the start of day 4. Walked a kilometre with the walking sticks, threw them away, and then just started trotting. And that was day 4. Day 5 was London Marathon.
Was that different?
Was a completely different experience. I remember waking up the morning London Marathon, and getting there, and everyone being buzzing, and there's an excitement around Marathon Day, and I barely could walk to the start line, and I was in the holding bit where everyone is, and these 2 women who work for London Marathon came up to me and they said, "Oh, you look a little bit lost." I said, no, I'm not lost. I can't stand still, because if I stand still, I won't be able to take another step. I can't sit down, because if I sit down, I won't be able to get up. They said, why? I said, oh, well, I've actually ran. They said, is this your first marathon? I said, not really. I said, it's sort of, but not really.
It's my first London marathon.
Yeah, I said, sort of, but not really. I said, what do you mean? I said, oh, I've ran 4 others. She said, when? I said, yesterday and the subsequent days before. And they were like, wow, no way. And I said, yeah. So I'm not really as excited as everyone else, because I think I broke both my shins and I can't really run, but I'm here and I need to run this marathon. And they just laughed at me and they said, you're crazy. And I said, well, it's all relative. And remember getting through the first 10K, 15K, and I saw my parents at I think it was the 18K mark. And as I said, I'm not an emotional person at all. I'm not emotional. And I saw my parents at like the 18K mark, and my dad's face was just quality, just absolute quality. And he was just so proud of me doing this. My mum's face, and they were crying. And it was just one of those things that they knew I was in absolute agony. And I was smart. I think I smiled the whole way through it. And I saw you, and you gave me a blue Powerade, and that was quality. And I remember it. And it was just a quality day. And there was a lady who I picked up on maybe 20K in, maybe halfway through. And there was a lady, and she was crying. And I just said to myself, every straight I'm going to run, every incline, no matter how big, I'm going to walk. And that was the mentality. That was the mentality for the week, really, but I really, really adopted it on Marathon Day, because I couldn't not do it. And we were walking up this hill together, and she was crying, and we were about halfway through, and I was just opened a sweet packet of some carbs. I said, here, have one of these. And I started chatting to her. I said, listen, I'm going to walk the inclines, trot just a slow trot on the straights. I said, stay on my heels, we'll do it together. And she did. And we got chatting, and it was her first marathon, and she trained maybe 8 months for it, and she was really excited, and she just was really struggling halfway through. And she was running with her friend, and her friend wanted to carry on and get a good time, and she couldn't carry on. And I said, cool, just stay on my heels, we'll run together, and enjoy it. Got chatting, and we got to about, I don't know, 5K before the finish line. And she asked me, she goes, "Oh, have you run a marathon before?" I said, "Sort of." And she said, "What do you mean?" I said, "This is my 5th one this week." I said, "I'm pretty sure I broke my shins." I didn't tell her anything at the time before then, because I just wanted to talking about her and her job, and she was from Scotland, and just kept her chatting, because I knew that it was selfishly obviously distracting myself as well, but it was helping her. And I didn't want to tell her anything else. And about 5K before the finish line, I told her, "I ran, this is my 5th one, and I'm pretty sure I broke my shins." And she couldn't believe it, and she started crying. And she was like, "I would never have done this without you." And we crossed the line together. I remember running the last kilometre with her good. We did a last strong kilometre together. And we crossed the line together. And she cried, she gave me a hug. And she was like, "Oh, I could never have done this without you." And that was really, really just gratifying to say that was it, and that was part of my little marathon, that I helped this one lady.
Something had come round for you.
Something had come round, and I helped this one lady cross the line. I'm sure she would have done it on her own, whether I was there or not. But it was just nice that she distracted me, I distracted her, and we crossed the line together, and it was good. And I've got a photo on my phone actually of us together, and it was just a real nice time. And I remember crossing the line and feeling unstoppable. Feeling like I could do absolutely anything. Had lunch, had dinner, and had to get an Uber from outside the restaurant, straight home from the middle of London, because I couldn't take another step. And
that marked the end of
end
of a wholesome experience, where
marked the end. Yeah,
you've had. You set out with the intention of doing something for your mum, and then along the way, people have done stuff for you. You did stuff for other people. You helped that lady on the thing, and all in all, raised some money and some awareness for a good cause.
Exactly that.
And showed your mum that, she'd taught you something in terms of fighting and strength and pushing through.
Yeah, that all came from my mum and my dad. The pair of them.
On the days I ran with you as well, they were there. They were very active. They were very proud. And, your brother was there as well. And he put in a shift.
But there were days where I knew that I was getting the best out of everyone around me as well. And that wasn't because of me. That was because everyone was fighting the same cause.
You inspired your brother to run was it his first half marathon?
My brother ran a 30K on one day. You ran a 30K and then a 20K, was it, in subsequent days?
Yeah.
And it was just things that there was a kid from school, from my primary school, who I hadn't seen really since then.
Yeah, I ran into him the other day.
Who came, Ben.
Yeah.
And he came and he ran. And I thought, wow, how is things, and people, you're running and people are honking on the road. And I learned so much about myself and about the people around me in good and bad ways. Because you learn that there are good people. At that time, I was against everyone, because I just thought the world was unfair, doing this stuff to my mum and my dad and my family. And I just thought there was a time where I'm not really a victim mindset or a victim-like person, but there was a time where it felt like, hang on a minute, why are the odds always against me? Why are the odds... To sum it up, my mum came out of A&E after 3 months of being in intensive care, and that same day, a lady crashed into me and totaled my car, and I rolled my car. And I thought, how are the odds against me this bad? And then I felt this victim, I felt it, and I remember feeling, it's just shit happens. It's just shit happens. And once you understand that, and you really get to know that there are good people in the world, that things don't always work out to how you want them to work out, but it's up to you what you fucking do about it. Excuse my language, but it's up to you what you do about it.
You can't change what happens to you, but you can change how you respond to it.
Exactly that.
So I'm glad that this whole experience, took you from a point where I've got to do this on my own, because the world ain't going to give it to me, to the world actually giving it back to you a little bit in the form of people supporting you, you come into this realization that people will be there for you. People will appear from nowhere, you know, and not just because there's something in it for them.
Yeah.
And that when you do good things happen to you. And bad things will happen. That's a part of life. And moving on and moving upwards from them is how best to handle it. And working with other people and being of service to people. And it doesn't surprise me now in the way that you coach, you know, that is of service. And you've seen your mum be of service to you. You've been of service to your mum. You were of service to the lady on the London Marathon finish straight. And I don't think it's any surprise the way you coach now. You know, people-focused coaching, not just results-driven coaching.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, yeah, there's results.
And that changed.
Yeah.
That changed because I was always, don't come unless you're going to be 100%. Don't come unless you're going to do it properly. Don't come unless you're... And that was me. And that was how people knew me. And still people might have that reception of me. And I don't mind that. But then when actually people get to know me, they'll see that there's more to it than that. That there is some empathy there.
Yeah.
Whether it looks it or not.
So you've now seen there's more to people.
There's more to people than that as well. And that you understand that you can't... There's so much more to there's people's lives you just don't understand. And I just remember thinking at the time when Mum was ill, and I haven't even mentioned at a time when my dad was ill through all of this. In between my mum being ill 1 year to the next, my dad got COVID and was in hospital on a ventilator. And I remember thinking, shit, like, this is bad. This is really bad. And I carried him out of my car to the A&E front door. I had to carry him. And he was always the strongest person to me. Never seen him weak, ever. Never been weak. And I carried him, because he couldn't breathe, to the front door of A&E, put him in a wheelchair, filled out his forms for him. And I wasn't allowed in the hospital because it was COVID. And I remember getting in the car and just sleeping for like 3-4 hours until he called to say that, or someone in the hospital called to say that he was all right. And I remember, because I didn't want to go home, I just wanted to be somewhere there. My mum was really ill, so she couldn't really leave the house. I remember thinking, shit, this is bad, and no one cares. And it was this like realization of no one knows. No one, and once you understand, to go full 360 rounds, what I'm trying to get to here, once you understand that no one in this world, no one, will care as much about the things that you care about, you personally, you're fine. Once you understand that, you can have deeper conversations with people, you can respect people, you can coach people, whatever it is, your relationships with other people will just be better. That you understand, that I understand, that I was thinking, why does no one care that my dad's ill or my mum's ill or this is happening or that's happening, and thinking, why does no one care about this stuff? They care enough to say, oh, I hope they're all right, but their life carries on. They've got their own problems in their life, and there's people with way worse problems than what I had and what my family had, and they're focusing on their problems, and it's all relative. And once you understand that, to any degree, you can relate this to absolutely anything, and that no one cares as much as you care. Once you realise that, it's not their fault. You can't blame people. It's not their fault for not caring as much as you, because they shouldn't. It's your problem. Or it's your excitement. Or it's your job bonus. Or it's your whatever it is. It doesn't matter. But it's relative to you as an individual. It's your story. And once you realise that, it's like a life-changing light bulb to say, actually, why should you care? And then you're just focused on what they're doing, and then you can help them a lot better. That there is a mutual relationship there. There is a mutual transaction of service, of conversation, or whatever it might be. But it's like a real because people put too much self-importance on themselves nowadays, more than ever, I think. Granted, I know this is the generation I'm in, but more than ever, people have a massive self-importance wrongly, because no one else cares. No one else should care. But there's a conversation to be had. There's excitement, there's joy, there's highs, there's lows. And once you understand that there's people there that I've got people who I go to when I'm low, I've got people that I go to when I'm high, whatever it is, and they will help at the time. But after that conversation, they're going to go back to their life, and I'm still going to be stuck with the high or the low or whatever it is.
It comes back to doing things for you, not for
exactly
other people.
That.
It's like what brings you to do what you do? Is it intrinsic or extrinsic motivation? And when you get to the point, and this may come from, your mum's yoga practice, it just took some time to get to you, which is, what we're doing is for our own health and wellness, and we're here to tell our own story.
Exactly
and
that.
Part of that story will be helping other people, but it's whether it's your work, your fitness, your health, no one's going to do it for you.
Exactly that. And that when that light bulb clicks, it's a revelation. And it clicked for me after I did the marathons. I learnt more about myself and my life post marathons than I did at any other time.
And you're dealing with some further uphill struggle after the marathons.
Yeah.
They're done. So usually people have a little bit in their head, which is a little bit of loss after something like that, because what they've been working for so long, they've achieved, and you get there and you're proud, but you realise, this feeling doesn't last. 2 broken shins.
No one warns you of that. No one warns you. In my training, when you train for training's sake, as we've discussed, and you just get up every day and you brush your teeth, there's no end goal to brushing your teeth. You're not going to want that just have perfect teeth because you brush your teeth for 20 years and then therefore you don't need to do it anymore. You're going to brush your teeth every single day till you die. Same with training. When there's a specific goal in mind when it comes to training, which I had never had before, job finished, job done. When that job was done, it's like a weight's off your shoulders, but then you immediately want to put another weight on, because it's like a weird feeling.
You need a purpose.
You need a purpose, because you've just been working towards, and after every day, I would text there was a guy in the fitness world, Ollie Marchon, who I respected a lot at the time. I still have a huge amount of respect for him, but I was working for him at the time, and I knew that he wouldn't give me any form of praise until it was job finished. And I knew that. And I wasn't expecting anything else apart from that. And on day 1, it was day 1 done. And that was the text. Day 2, done. That was the text. Day 3, day 4, day 5 was job done. And he was like, congrats, proud of you. And that was it. And I was like, cool, finished, job done. Now fucking what? Finished. I remember the next day I woke up, nowhere to run. Didn't have to go and run a marathon. Was on my own. Everyone else went back to work. Life carried on.
Yeah.
But I was sat there with 2 broken legs. Couldn't move. And this mindset of... Actually, I think I got up and went to work the next day. No, that I had one day off. The Monday I booked off, and the Tuesday I told my boss I'd be in work at 4 in the morning, or be up at 4. Had to be in work at 5:30. And I'm not someone to let someone down, so I got in my car, drove to Stratford, which I shouldn't have done because I couldn't control the clutch, couldn't use the brake pedal at all. It's lucky the road were empty, because if they weren't, I would have been in a lot of trouble, because I couldn't feel my feet. My feet were numb, and my shins, I had no push power in either leg. So for me to brake, I had to brake like 100 yards early and just squeeze it, just slowly get on the pedal, because it was impossible otherwise. It took me 45 minutes to do a 100-metre walk from the car park to the gym door, and couldn't coach, but I told my boss I'd be in the next day. So I did. Got up, went to work, finished that day. I called him up. I said, listen, I don't think this is clever for me to be in. I think I've really done some damage here. I had a scan yesterday. I'm waiting for the results, etc. Results came back. Bone marrow edema, 2 in both shins, which for those of you who don't know, it's basically with the inside of your bones obviously filled with bone marrow. That bone marrow just depleted away, turned into a liquid and a mush and seeped into my leg, basically, which just destroys the integrity of your shin. And that was from stress fractures in both shins. So long story short, both shins were broken.
2 broken legs.
2 broken legs. And it was like a relief to know, like, oh, I have done some damage here. It's not mental. It's not like a mental thing of being in pain. But it was also like, cool, what now? Couldn't go to work. Just finished this massive high. The biggest challenge I've personally ever done in my life. And mum was proud of me. Dad was proud of me. But life had to carry on for everyone else. But I was stuck. And that for the first time ever in my life, I was doing nothing. I didn't have any work. I couldn't go to work. Couldn't really train, even though I did go to the gym and just went into the gym in moon boots and doing pull-ups and chest press. And
how's this affecting you?
It was the biggest realization of understanding myself. And I went through highs, I went through lows, and understanding, hang on a minute, like you're not always in control. And for the first time in my life, I was doing nothing. From being 14 years old, I was working. I was at school, I had a job, I would train, I would do this. Summer holidays was just full-time work. Sixth form, I had a full-time job. I was always busy. And for 2 weeks of my life, the only 2 weeks ever, I couldn't do anything. And it felt like the world stopped. And it felt like everyone was against me. Because everyone was really... When you're doing well and you're at the top, everyone's there. You've got support, you've got messages. I had hundreds of messages. Hundreds, if not thousands of... I don't know. A lot of messages from random people, from people I was close with, from raised £10,000, charities. It was a real high, real high. And then literally within 2 days, complete juxtaposition of polar opposites, of
emotion, of
contact. Of emotion, because I felt like a fraud, because I'd finished this challenge and everyone was saying congratulations, but I didn't feel like I finished it because I couldn't walk another step. So what does that mean? Did I finish it? Did I not? Did I?
You didn't need another step.
Didn't need another step. If I needed to run another marathon, I 100% would have. I said if there was a sixth day that I said, I would have done it, but I felt like a fraud. I remember being on Instagram, posting that day I finished, and then I didn't post on Instagram for a week because I felt this imposter syndrome, or whatever you want to call it, of you've done it, but have you really done it? Can you say you did it? Because you broke both your legs. What does that mean? Did you do it? And I remember going into work 2 weeks later in these moon boots, and getting into work, 2 crutches, moon boots, and just thinking, hang on a minute, I'm not a man here. What is this? This isn't a manly thing to do. You've just ran, you broke your legs from running. What does that mean? What does that... And I had this whole complex going on in my own head that I didn't talk about to anyone, and I couldn't talk about because I couldn't understand it myself. And I didn't know what to do. And at the time I had a relationship and I was questioning everything. I was questioning my job, I was questioning relationship, I was questioning my whole life. Because for the first time ever, I had nothing to do.
So how long does it take for you to forgive yourself for feeling this way? Be proud of what you had achieved and start to move on and use what you'd learned about yourself from the experience.
It took me... I would be fighting it every day. There was times every day, and I started journaling. And if you told me a year before that I would be journaling, I would have laughed in your face.
Okay.
Because I would have never. I'm a man. I don't need to journal. I can work things out on my own. What's writing it down going to do? It's like a diary. What man has a diary in my head? That was how I spoke to some people in the fitness industry, and they said, try it, Phod. Try it. So I did. Got a book. Started journaling. I didn't really write down anything, but I definitely didn't write down nothing.
You had no agenda. You just
had no agenda. Just
whatever
what was
came
going
out.
in. And at the time, work, there was some struggles with work because I'm someone who likes working, and after the 2 weeks of being at home, I went back to work just to be at work, just to be a face in the gym. I couldn't coach because I couldn't stand, and I'd just do some admin. But at the time, it was a new gym, so there wasn't a lot of admin to do. So you're kind of just stuck around, just spare. And I don't like being a spare part. And so I'll journal about work, I'll journal about training, I'll journal about life, I'll journal about relationships, I'll journal about what I want to do in the future. And it kind of just gave me a bit of a purpose, as to say, actually, you're not as far away from things as you thought you were. Kind of like, write it down, give yourself some perspective on things. And there was this self-realization that understanding what I had done was actually a very big achievement. And it didn't, in the fitness world, as you know, and the people that we hang around with or we follow on Instagram, exactly how we spoke about at the very beginning of this podcast, to say that there's people at the top of these levels making extreme things into looking like everyday activities, which is not the case. These professional bodybuilders look like that for one day of the year, but they make you believe that that's a daily occurrence. It's not. So for me, I knew people who had ran a lot further and for a lot longer, and thinking, what's 5 and 5? What is this? Like, it's not that impressive. To my family and to friends who aren't in the fitness industry, they've never heard of anything like that before. And running one marathon was impressive. But then when I would say it to people who I was friends with, who I knew had done more than that, you couldn't be excited about it, because it was nothing compared to what they did. But then the quote of comparison is the thief of joy really hit in, to say, actually, Phod, you've done this. You did this for mum. She's proud of you. You taught her that there's more, that she can carry on fighting because you're fighting. And it actually worked out that there was I was trying to do it to prove her, but then she ended up carrying on fighting to prove to me. And it was like this weird little relationship.
Everyone got enriched from it.
And everyone got enriched from it. And I didn't really realise that. And I sat back and thought, actually, this is cool. This is cool I broke my legs. This is cool there's a story behind this. This is a cool thing to do. And then that changed into quitting my job. That changed into ending a relationship. That changed into setting up my own business. That changed into my whole life changing for the better, of understanding, actually, this is me. I've understood myself now. I can, and this little journey or enlightenment or whatever you want to call it, of a little bit of journaling, of this challenge that was a big thing, and now I look back and say, actually, I am proud of myself that I did that.
You have to put yourself through tough things in life to get to the bottom of what you're really feeling, what you're really wanting. Growth occurs outside of the comfort zone.
Exactly that.
So what you had been doing, despite it being a high octane lifestyle of regular discipline, because you had been using progressive overload through your entire life to get there, you probably wasn't stepping out of your comfort zone. And here you are doing something for a bigger purpose than yourself. And it was hard. It taught you a lot. And then the lessons didn't actually start until you crossed the finish line.
Yeah.
With 2 broken legs. You get this period of time where you're left wondering, why? Why me? And what am I supposed to be doing?
Yeah.
And you use this journaling, which, I'm a big advocate of. Yeah, I use it very regularly. And you discover. And then you then go back to what you know, which is doing the thing daily to get to where you want, which is how you get to, like you said, starting your own business and finding out who you are.
Yeah, and it took that to do that.
It's all right. That's how you find yourself.
That's how you find yourself. And it's the maddest life lesson that you can't teach. And you don't want anyone, I say this to a lot of people now, that you don't want anyone to go through a struggle in life. If everyone's life was struggle free, then fair play to them. But until you do go through that struggle of something, whatever it might be, that struggle could be anything. I'm not going to say anything in particular. It could be absolutely anything, but it's going to be relative to you in your lifetime and that struggle, and you learn something about yourself through it. And because I always said, and everyone always said to me, how do you, you've had such a hard life with your mum and this and that, and I would say, yeah, but it's I sound rude saying it, it's not to me. It was normal. I didn't think anything of it. It's to my mum. My mum had a hard life.
For her, yeah.
She had a hard life. Nothing to do with me. I got up. I went to work every day. I still went out with drinks with my friends. I still had holidays. I still did this. I'm not the one being ill. So it's not to me. And until it happened to me, personally, that I was the one sat there with 2 broken legs, that I was the one thinking that woe is me, that it became all relative. Because until that point, I would just be there for my dad, I'd be there for my mum, I'd be there for my brother and sister, I'd be there for whoever else was there that was needed. And you don't really think about it until it's actually on your plate, that the shit is in your pan kind of thing. And you're like, wow, this is what this feels like.
So with the wisdom that came after this experience, what would you go back and tell 16-year-old Phod about how to live his life?
I actually wouldn't change a thing. I wouldn't change a thing because I like the person I am today, understanding that person is still growing and still changing and forever will be. And I stayed very true to that 16-year-old kid now, in the same disciplines I had then, I have now. And I like the fact that being a kid, and this is a really, I don't want to go down this sidetrack, but I'm going to say this, and if it leads onto something, then it does. But I remember being a kid at 16 years old and wanting to be this alpha male like character, and genuinely saying, I don't believe in depression because I think it's a mind state and a mindset. And saying that and truly, truly believing it, I would never say I was depressed ever, because I just think I was low, I was high, it's just feelings. I understand now that I can't be so naive to the fact that other people do have, that there is more to it than just feeling a mindset, essentially, in terms of different biological reactions that happen in your brain and etc. But being a 16-year-old kid and saying to my friends at school, I don't believe in depression, and believing it, and still to a degree, I still think that. I still think that factor, but now I have a more educated understanding of actually what it means, that I can say it. And I would never say it to someone who I understand it might spark a different debate, because it's not something, I don't want to rattle any snakes by saying stuff like that, because I know that it's a subject and a conversation that can go down a very long path. But I would say that when in those 2 weeks after I ran those marathons and I was sat there on a sofa after the highest high I've ever had, going straight into the lowest low I've ever had, that as close to depression could come, I was there. As close to me being depressed, I would never say I was depressed because I believe I got myself out of it. So therefore, therefore to me, it's
you
still
was able to bounce back.
I was able to bounce back, but I know that I'm a strong character. So for their people who aren't as strong as that mentally, you could spiral down certain roads of feeling certain ways and not being able to get yourself back. But I'll always go back to the fact that being a 16-year-old kid, if I could change anything, I wouldn't change anything, but I would just want to have a bit more of an understanding to other people's perceptions of things, because you don't know what everyone's going through. And that's what I would change, to not be so gung-ho.
I think what you're maybe trying to get to there is the wisdom that comes with being older and more experienced you'd impart onto younger Phod.
Yeah. But at the same time, I that wisdom came through thinking that way. So it's not like I'm sitting here
it's
like
a chicken and egg. You have to go through it to get the wisdom.
Yeah.
But
so therefore, why would you want to change it?
Exactly.
Why would you go back to change it? Because if I changed it then, I would have never gone through it.
Yeah, it's what made you who you are today.
Exactly.
So, as we sort of draw to the end, what are you working on at the moment?
For me, I'm working on building a brand around who Coach Phod is, to be someone in the fitness industry that people look up to be more than just a guy who looks good, more than just a guy who can train and move and take a good photo or take a good video, but to really be someone who, from a coaching point of view, from a mentality point of view, and from a training point of view, to be someone who understands that what health and fitness actually is. And that's what I'm working on. The big picture of what I'm working on is to promote what health and fitness actually is, as opposed to the world that we live in, how it's promoted. Because how it's promoted now is wrong, in my opinion.
Just the veneer that's on the front.
Just the veneer that's on the front. Exactly that.
And who's the, who is the person that could benefit most from working with Coach Phod?
Someone who could benefit most. So I'm not a hand-holding coach. If you need someone to tell you what to eat, how to eat it, what to train, when to train, how to train, I'm not the coach for you. If you need someone to tell you, park 200 meters further from the shopping centre so you get a few more steps in the day, I'm not the coach for you. If you can get yourself to the gym 4, 5, 6 days a week and want to train, but just be a little bit lost in direction, I'm your man. And that's who I want to encourage, to tell people, like, cool, this is what health and fitness is. This is how you're doing it currently. I have been there and I have done that. I have learned these lessons. Let me help you with these lessons. Let me teach you the wrongs I've done to think that I was this health and fitness guy, that I'm still learning myself, is exactly what it means. And as I said earlier, what does health actually mean to you? Because it's a massive spectrum. And there's a lot of guys out there who do need just a bit of clarity, a bit of direction, a bit of structure as to what health actually means. Because we all want to look good, but there's way more to training than just that. And that's who will benefit from working with me. Someone who can get themselves to the gym, who's willing to work hard, willing to take on some criticism, but is also looking for the next step of, cool, what's next? Whether that's just training every day, it doesn't have to be a competition, it doesn't have to be a challenge. It could just be training for the everyday guy or girl for life, but understanding that training is for life, and it's not just for a holiday, or it's not just for a summer body, or whatever it might be.
So what is next for Coach Phod?
What is next for Coach Phod? As a person, an Ironman is going to get booked for next year. As my own athlete, as to say, an Ironman is getting booked for next year. That's going to be the next challenge for me. I've never ridden a bike on a road before. I've never swam in open water before. Obviously, I've ran a few marathons. So that's going to be the next challenge, and that's going to change what I'm doing. At the same time as doing the Ironman, I'm looking and debating doing a bodybuilding show within a month of doing the Ironman, and doing it completely different to what bodybuilding constitutes today, to show that you can look good by following a healthy routine, and you can be fit and move your body at the same time.
The ultimate hybrid.
The ultimate hybrid athlete, but without doing it in ways that aren't healthy.
I look forward to it. I think that's an exciting challenge. Any sort of triathlon is going to be a tough experience. Any sort of bodybuilding is going to be a tough experience. They are almost opposing methods of fitness, and I think balancing it will make for an incredibly interesting experience. Is there anything you want to leave us with as we draw this to a close?
I think we've touched upon a few good conversations. I could sit here for hours now and just talk. So I think we could. We've touched upon a few really interesting things.
We'll have to come back.
We'll definitely have to come back. But something that I would just like to reinforce the point I said earlier, as to do things for you, because genuinely people, there's good people in the world, but no one will care as much as you do. And when I can't state that fact enough, and how important that really is, when you really get to grips with what that means, you're unstoppable, because you're just doing things for you. You're still doing it for the people around you. You still understand that people are there for you, but deeper down, the only person that's really in control of what you're doing is you. And that's how it should be. And you can really enjoy your life a lot more when that's true.
Thank you. I really enjoyed this conversation. I really appreciate you coming on. It's very good of you to support me. You didn't have to do this. You've come on. You've been a great conversation, very vulnerable, and I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, mate.
I think we're going to go for a run.
For a trot.
Get some miles in. But before we go, where can people find you?
Coach_Phod on the gram. YouTube coming soon.
Excellent. I look forward to it. Maybe we'll take the cameras out with us on this run. Get you some for your YouTube.
Let's do it, brother.
All right. Thank you very much.
Nice one, bro.
Cheers, Coach Phod. Well done, mate. Excellent.
That was good.